Is it worth upgrading to ChatGPT Plus? Before we begin, here is a quick update from ChatGPT. They have introduced a new feature, custom instructions. Here we can write any prompt that will be prefixed before every new chat that we do with ChatGPT. For example, we can write here, write code in PHP or write in less than 2000 words or so. If there is any prompt that you have to write in almost every of your chat, you can define it here. And here we can define the behavior of the agent. So just like in playground, there is a system field. Whatever we write here, we can write here. So it will define a personality of ChatGPT right here, and we can save it. So every time we create a new chat, we do not have to write this again and again. In this video, we are going to explore three questions: why to upgrade to ChatGPT Plus, how to upgrade, and why not to upgrade. So let's start with why to upgrade to ChatGPT Plus. In the free version, we only get access to GPT 3.5, whereas in the Plus version, we also get access to GPT 4. In my views, GPT 3.5 behaves like a 10-year-old, whereas GPT 4 behaves like a 15-year-old. I use ChatGPT as a reasoning engine and for coding, and in my use case, GPT 4 performs much better than GPT 3.5. When you upgrade to Plus, you also get access to plugins. Plugins are third-party applications like Zapier and Wolfram, and there is a plugin store where there are dozens to choose from. So what do these plugins do? I have enabled Wolfram and Zapier. Let's take example of Zapier. Zapier is a third-party application that connects with thousands of other apps like Gmail, Facebook, etc. So with Zapier, I can connect my Gmail with ChatGPT. So I can ask ChatGPT to compose an email and send it using Zapier, and it will send the email within from ChatGPT. And take an example of Wolfram. We know that ChatGPT isn't very good with mathematical calculations, but with Wolfram enabled, now it is. I can ask it any computational problem. I can ask it questions about integration, differentiation, anything, and it will be able to answer that using Wolfram as its backend. So there are some very interesting plugins here. Here it is a chat with PDF and AI PDF. What these plugins do is that we can upload a PDF file. The PDF file can be of any length, hundreds of pages. We can upload that PDF and ask ChatGPT any question about the PDF. We can upload Constitution of India and ask it questions about the law. So this is very useful in such cases. A few days ago, there were only a dozen plugins, but now we can see that there are 87 pages of plugins. So slowly, a lot of SaaS apps are coming to ChatGPT as plugin. So this is very promising solution to use AI in real world. But apart from plugins, it also has a very nice feature, code interpreter. So what it does is that it also lets us upload a file and ask question about that file. So the plugin that we just saw, Chat with PDF and AI PDF, they have become obsolete. We can do this right here within ChatGPT without any external plugin. We can just use this plus button to upload a PDF file, and we can directly ask questions about PDF. So my first attempt at this was uploading a screenshot of a web page and asked it to create the HTML for that page. However, it could not do that as it does not have the ability to visually interpret the images or screenshots. So this use case failed, but let's try one more. So in this use case, I use this plus button to upload a zip file and ask it to create a single page HTML using Bootstrap and jQuery. And the page will have a form that submits to a PHP file, and the PHP file will email whatever it receives to this email address. So this file has all the details that it needs to create this form. It has a form, it has a list of countries that are free, a list of countries that are paid, and it needs to do some additional calculation based on that. So this form is to be used at csms.com, which is a website that helps SaaS integrate SMS in their apps. So let's see what it did. The very first step is that it extracted that zip file. And if we click on this icon here, we can see the actual Python code that it wrote to execute this step. So this is a simple code that extracts the zip file, and it has extracted the zip file in a folder, and then it is switching to this directory. Let's see what it does. It simply lists the contents of this directory, and here are the contents. And here it describes what these contents are. So he says that these are the form fields, these are the free countries, these are the paid countries, and then it is trying to parse their structure. So all the three files has a different structure. So it is writing Python code to parse them one by one. So and it goes on and goes on and goes on, and in the end it is able to create the form and the PHP file. So there are some issues. Some of the form fields are missing, and cases like that. So I tell it to write that, and then it updated the form with those fields. But it was able to do that. So this is very impressive. So I like this code interpreter feature. So it writes Python code in real time using the prompts that we are giving it. So it is not only writing the Python code, it is also executing the Python code. So it wrote the code to extract the zip file, and then it executed the code to actually extract the contents of the zip file. So it was able to switch to the directory, it was able to list the files in the directory. So it is writing and executing the code in the real time. So this is very impressive. As we know, for both GPT 3.5 and GPT 4, the information has been cut off in September 2021. So if we ask ChatGPT about any recent event, it won't be able to answer that. Whatever content it generates based on the information it has, which has been cut off in September 2021. So it is quite possible that it will tell us answers that are obsolete in 2023. So to fix that, ChatGPT Plus in GPT-4 model also offers an option of browsing with Bing. So it is unavailable at the moment because they have taken it offline for some modifications. But if it were available here and we had selected that, and if we have asked it about any recent event, it would have been able to answer that. So what it does is that it browses the web, looks for the data from the news sources, from the links that it finds in Bing, and using that data, it responds to our question. So that is also a very useful feature. And if by any chance you are not seeing these options here, you are not seeing the plugin code interpreter or browse with Bing here, you can turn that on from the settings. So you have to go to the settings, beta features, and you have to turn this on, plugins and code interpreter. Then there is pricing. As you can see that my bill has exceeded $20 by a lot. I use this account exclusively for GPT-4 on OpenAI's Playground. And here as well, the bill has exceeded $20. And why I am comparing it with $20 is because the pricing of ChatGPT Plus is $20 per month. So if we buy ChatGPT Plus, then at least the bill would be capped at $20, and we would still have access to GPT-4. And then the next question is how to buy. So that is straightforward unless you live in India. Here, as per government regulations, credit card cannot be used to make recurring payments. So we just get this error, your card has been declined. And I have been in touch with their support. However, they have not been helpful. It seems like they are not even reading my messages. They are just sending canned response. So I was asking them that if it would be possible for them to generate an invoice for me so that I can pay it like I am paying all my OpenAI's invoices using the same card. But the support was not very supportive. So I eventually found out that it was possible to buy through their app. They have an iOS app. I just downloaded the app subscription using Apple Store. So this is something that their support could have told me, but they did not. So this is an issue only if you live in India. If you live anywhere else, you can directly buy the Plus subscription directly from ChatGPT's website. The answer to the question why not to buy ChatGPT Plus lies in the fine print right here. That says GPT-4 currently has a cap of 25 messages every 3 hours. When you use GPT-4 or any other language model for coding, the conversation tends to get quite long. We have to write a prompt to ask GPT-4 to code something, and it responds with the code that often is not the correct one. And then we again have to tell GPT-4 that this is wrong with the code and it should modify the code like this. Then it again sends us code, and this goes on and on. So in my case, I exhaust this limit of 25 messages in the first hour itself, and then it says that I cannot use GPT-4 anymore. I have to wait for 2 hours before I can send any more messages. So that is a problem. Now, one of the reasons to upgrade to Plus was that my usage was quite high, and by upgrading to ChatGPT Plus, it was assured that my total monthly cost would be limited to $20. But here in this case, if we are not able to use GPT-4 as much as we can use using the API, then this is not a fair comparison. And it is also possible due to this limitation that my total usage of GPT-4 in ChatGPT Plus was much less than what it would have been if I have been using the API using Playground. Now, the reason why I have this cost is because I open a Playground API in multiple tabs and multiple processes go on as I code. So one Playground tab is coding one function while the other Playground tab is coding another function. But in case of ChatGPT, I am not able to use that because of this limitation. So I do not believe that pricing is a positive point after all. It is quite possible we are not able to use even $20 worth of GPT-4 if we use ChatGPT Plus because it has a fair usage policy of some kind. Now, it has been rumored that this limit of 25 messages every 3 hours is going to increase to 50 messages or maybe 200 messages. But as of yet, it is still 25 messages every 3 hours. And number of messages is not proportional to number of tokens. So it is quite possible that your messages were very short, but it would still use up from this limit. Second issue is forgetfulness. As we know that the context size of GPT-4 is 8,000, which means that total number of tokens in the prompts plus total number of tokens in the responses cannot exceed 8,000 tokens. That would be approximately 8,000 into 2.75 words. However, what I have noticed is that even if my messages are short and ChatGPT's response is short, and even if the total number of words in the current conversation is just 1,000 words or so, even in that case, it tends to forget the early messages and early responses. So it would not remember what my initial requirements were, and it gets annoying that we have to keep telling it that this is what I wanted and this is what you responded, and it just keeps on giving the same errors in loop because it forget our earlier conversation. However, if we were using the API using Playground, then we can just write all the messages, that user's message, assistant message, and so on, make a conversation, and we will be assured that the whole conversation is going to GPT-4 for a response. So it will have the context that we want it to have. We have more control over what context it is viewing. I find that for more complex functions, Playground using GPT-4 API gives a much better response than ChatGPT Plus in GPT-4 mode. Third issue is that it feels like GPT-4 has dumbed down a bit. For example, here in this case, I gave it a fully working code and asked it to make some minor modifications to the code. However, the code it gave didn't work. I told it that these are the errors in this case. But it just apologized instead of fixing the code again. It just says that, I apologize for this and contact the Facebook developers team or, hire a developer. So here in this case, this was a simple codes error which could have been fixed in multiple ways, either by changing a few lines of code or by changing the permissions in the app. But instead of fixing or suggesting how to fix this particular piece of code, it just gave up. And this is not an isolated incident. This has been happening a lot ever since the first week of July. Whenever you ask it to code something and there is an error and you tell it that there is an error in this code, it just says, hire a developer. Do not bother me. I apologize. So this didn't used to happen in May or June. This has been started to happen in the first week of July. And I was so annoyed by this that I actually searched that if they have done something to dumb it down. And surprisingly, I am not the only one that is thinking that GPT-4 has dumbed down. If you can see here, there are a lot of people talking about the same thing. They are asking the same questions. And this is so prominent that OpenAI has to officially make an announcement that GPT-4 has not dumbed down. So, you know how big an issue that is, that they have to officially make a statement that it has been dumbed down. So if we look at Playground and here in the model section, if we click on show more models, here we see that GPT-4 now has three models: the original GPT-4, GPT-4 0314, and GPT-4 0613. So it does mean that they have a newer GPT-4 model, although they did not intend it to dumb it down, but for some reasons, for the purpose of coding, it seems that the model has been dumbed down. So it does not do what we intended to do. Let's take another example. Here in this case, I wanted it to write a WordPress plugin for AutoWrite. AutoWrite.app is a website that lets you make articles free of cost. And here I wanted to make a WordPress plugin for it that fetches AutoWrite using API and post an article automatically on my WordPress website. In this prompt, I gave it all the information that it needs to fetch the article and post that on WordPress. And I also mentioned specifically to write the complete code, do not skip code. However, the code that it wrote was not the complete code. It just wrote a few functions and called it a day. So I told it to write the remaining code. Then it again wrote the code, and that too in parts. And in the functions here, it said that here you would fetch the queued articles, and here you would display a form. So it didn't write the complete code. So now we know that GPT-4 has dumbed down. But what's the solution? Solution is competition. Here comes Claude AI, which is a chatbot just like ChatGPT. And here I told it the same prompt that I told the ChatGPT. And here in the first go, it created all the functions with all the code. And there was just a few functions missing in here. And I again told it that, you missed this, you need to add that. The information was already in my initial prompt, and it created the rest of the functions. Now the function that it created, so irrespective of if the code was written by GPT or Claude or any other large language model, the functions these bots create are not usable as it is. So you cannot just paste this function and expect the plugin to work. That is not going to happen. We have to modify this a lot, but it does gives us a good starting point. It saves us the monotonous work of declaring all the functions, coming up with function names and such. So and writing all the post and get APIs that we would have that sometimes get quite verbose. And the code is simple but monotonous. We have to write a lot of lines for simple post function. So it does saves us time, but do not expect that the code is going to run in the first go. But if we compare the output given by GPT-4 and Claude, I would say that Claude gave me a much better output. So I'm not sure if that is because GPT-4 has dumbed down or because Claude is much better model. But in the end, Claude was able to compare to GPT-4. So it is at par with GPT-4, if not better. To answer whether Claude is better than GPT-4 would require a lot more than this. It would require a lot of questions, lot of data from different fields, and we have to benchmark both GPT-4 and Claude and compare them. Then only we can analyze which model is better. But the fact that we are comparing Claude with GPT-4 and not GPT 3.5, it is something. If you notice that all the large language models out there, be it open source like Facebook's or proprietary like Google or any of the adaptations of these models, they all compare themselves to ChatGPT. They say that it has 95% accuracy of ChatGPT, it has 97% accuracy of ChatGPT. What they mean is that they have 95% accuracy of GPT 3.5. They have 97% accuracy of GPT 3.5. However, in this case, we are comparing Claude to GPT-4. If Claude turns out to be better than GPT-4, then it would become the best AI model humankind has ever known, which is GPT-4 at the moment. So now that we are comparing Claude and GPT-4, let's compare all the aspects. There comes our fourth point, the pricing. Now there are only two ways to access GPT-4. One is through ChatGPT Plus subscription that costs $20 per month. And the second is using the GPT-4 API that costs $0.06 per thousand tokens. However, to access Claude, we have to pay $0. That is, Claude is free. That is, we can access something like GPT-4 free of cost. This is a big reason not to upgrade to ChatGPT Plus. And even when Claude would become paid, its pricing will be much lower than GPT-4. So here we can see that the pricing is $32.68 per million tokens. That makes it $0.03 per thousand tokens. Whereas the price of our GPT-4 is $0.06 per thousand tokens. So its pricing is almost half that of GPT-4, and it also has an instant model, a turbo model like GPT 3.5T, and that has a pricing of $5 per million tokens. So that is also quite cheap. So that is 0.005. I guess its pricing is 0.002. Yeah, so its pricing is 0.002. And pricing of Claude is 0.005, but there is a big difference. Here the context size is 4,000, whereas here we have context size of 100,000 tokens. So we have a model that can write with the quality of GPT-4, and it has a context size of 100,000 tokens. We have a model that can write with the quality of 3.5T, and it has a context size of 100,000 tokens. So in 100,000 tokens, you can write the entire code of an application, or at least a large portion of it. You can do a lot with this much context size. For a comparison, GPT-4 has a context window size of 8,000 tokens. And here, if we look at the pricing of this model, which has 100,000 tokens, is half of GPT-4's pricing, which has a context window of 8,000 tokens. If we go back to GPT-4, we will see that there is another GPT-4 model that has a context size of 32,000 tokens. However, this particular model has been here on this page for at least 4 months, and this is yet to be seen anywhere. So for all practical purposes, this model is a myth, whereas we can use Claude right now by visiting claude.ai. The only thing is that Claude is currently open only to US and UK. So if you are not residing in US or UK and you want to use Claude, you have to use a VPN for that. To be honest, I do not understand the concept of geo-blocking IPs without blocking VPNs as well. It seems like having a locked door but with no walls. So if you want to geo-restrict IPs in your app, use something like lookup.im to verify if the IP is from a VPN, Tor, or it is of some residential user. So that concludes our video. I hope it has been helpful. Do let me know in the comments below. And thank you for watching the whole video.